Welcome to Universe of Love in Anime, where love stories are told with all your heart. Before we begin our emotional journey today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who needs a story that is healing, hopeful, and humane. Each of your support not only motivates us, but also spreads love to more people. Thank you for choosing to stop by Universe of Love in Anime, and now, let's listen to this heart-touching story. Growing Heart. In my past life, after the divorce, I left our 3 children with Luis. I thought I was freeing myself, stepping into a new beginning. But I never imagined the cruel twist fate had in store. Luis died young, and our children each met a fate more heartbreaking than the last. Our eldest son, Isin, bullied and neglected, eventually lashed out and killed someone. He ended up behind bars, his youth wasted in prison. Our second son, Ryan, lazy and addicted to quick pleasures, fell deep into debt and was found dead in a landfill, alone and forgotten. And our daughter Fiona, the youngest, ended up in the hands of a monster. She became unstable, lost herself, and in a final desperate act, tried to run him over. But she crashed. They never even found her body. The day I received the news, my heart shattered. The pain was unbearable. I collapsed, and when I woke up, everything had changed. I had traveled back into Mito the very day Luis and I were about to sign our divorce papers. I opened my eyes to see Luis in front of me, just as handsome as I remembered. Without thinking, my hand moved on its own and slapped him hard across the face. He clutched his cheek, furious, and said, "What's wrong with you? Was I not good enough for you last night?" I didn't respond. I stared at my hand. It hurt. This wasn't a dream. It was real. I looked at the calendar. January 23rd, 1986. The exact day everything changed. In my previous life, we divorced that day. And not long after, I found out I was pregnant again with the one child I ended up raising alone. I poured all my love into that baby and completely forgot about the other 3 I had left behind. But life was cruel. I lost Luis, then the children one by one. My soul ached just remembering it. I got dressed quickly and kicked the blanket off Luis. "Get up." His face was still red from the slap, and he retreated under the covers like a child. "You said last night you were satisfied. That we weren't getting a divorce. Were you lying?" I didn't have the patience. I grabbed his ear and yanked. "We're not getting divorced. We're bringing the kids back." Luis looked like it was Christmas morning. He jumped out of bed, threw on his clothes, and took me to his mother's house on his old bike. On the way, he tried to be casual. "So, what's with the sudden change? Could it be you realized you can't live without me?" I glared at him. "Don't flatter yourself. This has nothing to do with you." The truth was, if I went through with a divorce, the children would stay with Luis again and I couldn't let history repeat itself. I had failed as a mother. I ran away from my responsibilities and paid the ultimate price. Not this time. I would protect them, even if it meant staying by Luis's side. When we arrived at his mother's house, my heart pounded as I knocked. The door opened, and there was Ison, just 11 years old. His eyes froze when he saw me. I smiled softly, trying to mask my nerves. "Ison, sweetheart. Mom's here. You've been staying at Grandma's for a week. What do you say, do you want to come home?" But he didn't smile. His voice was polite but cold. "Thanks, Mom. We're fine here." It felt like a bucket of ice water had been poured over me. I had forgotten how broken our relationship had been at this point in time. And it wasn't entirely my fault. Luis and I were brought together by an arranged marriage. He had always been in love with someone else, Alice, the woman he couldn't have, the one who dreamed of going abroad. After I gave birth to Ison, I suffered from postpartum depression. Nobody in the 80s talked about it, but I was drowning. I needed Luis by my side. But instead, he left the country to find Alice. He didn't come back for a whole year. By the time he did, I was a shell of myself. I was detached, numb, unable to care. There were days I was afraid of what I might do. Ison could sense it. He feared me, and he hated me for it. When Luis realized how serious it was, he finally started to take care of me. We had our second son, Rayan, but I hadn't recovered. Luis gave him to his mother to raise. Rayan grew up distant. He called me crazy, played cruel jokes on me, even destroyed all my clothes once. We fought, asked for a divorce. That was when Luis panicked. He begged for forgiveness, promised to take care of me forever. For a while, we lived in uneasy peace. Then Fiona was born, sensitive and sweet, but soon she too began to pull away. People whispered I was insane. Fiona cried when she saw me. She even accused me of hitting her. Once, she begged Luis to let her teach her, Alice, who had returned to the country of her mother instead. My world collapsed. Everything I had buried resurfaced. I asked for a divorce again. Luis refused. We argued. That night turned into disaster. And yet, looking back, I realized Luis wasn't the only one to blame. I had failed too. When Luis barked at Ison to pack up and leave with us, I saw the light in my son's eyes fade. He looked at me one last time, said nothing, and began to gather his things. My heart broke. I'd hurt him again. No, Ison, I said quickly. You don't have to pack. I'm staying here. With you all. Luis and his mother were stunned. I didn't care. This time, I would not abandon my children. But I was naive to think I could fix everything so easily. The next morning, I made Ison breakfast. I packed it carefully and slipped it into his school bag. I followed him to school, hidden at a distance. When he opened the bag and saw the lunch, he threw it on the ground. Food spilled everywhere. My eyes stung. I waited until he left, then knelt to collect what I could. I told myself it wouldn't change overnight. At home, I bought Rayan his favorite candy peanut brittle. His eyes lit up, and for a second, I saw a glimpse of joy. "Grandma, Mom bought me nougat," he shouted excitedly. That moment, though small, gave me hope. I had come back for a reason. And this time, I would fight for their love. My mother-in-law gave me a venomous look and sneered. Well, miracle of miracles. The sun must have risen in the west today. You finally remembered you had children. Then, without waiting for a response, she turned away, muttering as she went. Diane, meanwhile, acted like everything was perfectly normal, smiling and playing as if he hadn't just made a scene the day before. I allowed myself a flicker of hope and began to play with him. He laughed, I laughed, and for a fleeting moment, I thought things might be different this time. But hope is a fragile thing. It shattered the moment my mother-in-law left to buy vegetables. With a mischievous gleam in his eye, Rayan suddenly bolted toward the stairs and flung himself down. My body moved too slow. All I could hear was the sickening crack, then a scream that pierced straight through my soul. Rayan cried like he was dying. Fiona rushed to him, sobbing, "Brother." I ran too, but before I could reach him, Fiona turned on me, fury in her small face. "Get away from him, you wicked woman. You pushed him." Her voice carried across the walls and right into the ears of our nosy neighbors. Doors creaked open, faces peeked out, and gossip bloomed like weeds. "Even a tigress protects her cubs," one old woman muttered. "We always said she was unstable. Poor child, his life is ruined now." Their words cut deeper than knives. I looked at Fiona's tear-streaked face and Ryan's cries of agony, and the truth crashed down on me. These kids, they weren't just angry. They were testing me, trying to drive me away. Again. My mother-in-law returned just in time to witness the chaos. She dropped her grocery bags and screamed, "I told Luis he had to divorce you. Look what's happened now. If the boy's hurt, what are we going to do?" My face was frozen, but my mind was racing. I pulled Fiona aside, raised my voice firmly, and the entire house fell silent. Even the neighbors stopped whispering. Only Rayan kept crying. I knelt beside him and gently touched his leg. It wasn't broken. Swollen maybe, but not broken. He had staged it well, but not well enough. I narrowed my eyes and said coldly, It's too late now. You're going to be lame for the rest of your life. Ryan's cries stopped immediately. He stared at me, wide-eyed, confused. Then he burst into real sobs, louder, messier, desperate. But I didn't budge. My mother-in-law ignored me and scooped him up, heading for the door. Just as she reached it, Luis walked in, holding Isen's hand. "What's going on?" he asked. My mother-in-law didn't say a word. The neighbors jumped in, recounting every detail with exaggerated horror. Luis turned to me, his expression dark, while Ryan pointed at me, wailing, "Dad, it was Mom. I'll never walk again." Luis crouched beside him, frowning. "Don't say that, son. You'll be fine. I'll take you to the hospital." I chuckled coldly. "You're too optimistic. That leg is definitely broken." Ryan cried even louder. I leaned in and whispered, "If you don't jump now, it might fall off completely." With a yelp, Ryan sprang from my mother-in-law's arms and landed perfectly on both feet. The silence was absolute. A long string of snot dangled from his nose as he blinked in confusion. "My leg's okay?" I smiled. "Of course it is. You only threw yourself down a few steps." Ryan nodded like it all made sense. "Yeah, if I jumped, how could it break?" Fiona's eyes went wide, then she slapped him on the arm. "You idiot! You ruined it." Realization hit Ryan like a brick. He ducked behind Grandma, trying to disappear. Luis's jaw clenched. "So, you faked an injury and tried to blame your mother? Ryan, did your brain fall out on the stairs?" But I didn't just blame Ryan. I could feel the tension, the quiet disappointment in Isen's eyes, the way Fiona's lies came too easily. They were all part of this. My heart twisted. Even between a mother and her children, when the bond breaks, it doesn't mend overnight. When the neighbors realized it was all a performance, they turned on my mother-in-law with the same fervor. No wonder she went mad. Kids like that would drive anyone insane. My mother-in-law could only bow her head and apologize to Luis. At home, dinner was already on the table. No one spoke. When it was Ryan's turn to eat, I cleared my throat. "Whoever bullies Mom doesn't get food." Ryan froze. "Why not?" I smiled sweetly. "Because I'm a bad mom, remember?" He scowled. "Well, I'm going to eat anyway. This is Grandma's house." Even my mother-in-law muttered, "They're still growing. You can't starve them." But I stayed firm. Not just because of the prank. Because if they didn't learn now, what would they become later? Ryan and Fiona yelled in protest. Luis raised a hand. "Enough." Instantly, they fell silent. Their faces twisted in guilt. Luis hesitated, but with the divorce still hanging in the air, he sided with me. "Listen to your mother. You crossed a line. Skipping one meal won't kill you." My mother-in-law frowned. "Luis, Mom," he interrupted, "we have to guide them now. Look what they've done." Ryan and Fiona ended up crying in the corner. Isen, quiet as always, sat and ate. I gently placed an extra piece of chicken on his plate. "Eat more, Isen. I made this for you." His eyes sparkled for a moment. "Thank you, Mother," he whispered. After dinner, my weary mother-in-law suggested we take the boys home. I took Isen's hand, looked at Luis, and said, "I'm taking Isen with me. You and the other two can stay here." All three children froze. "Why?" they cried in unison. I didn't answer. Instead, I remembered that morning the way Isen had looked at me when he threw away his lunch. Luis had frowned and said, "That boy's becoming more withdrawn. His teacher says he goes a whole month without talking sometimes." A chill crept up my spine. I knew the signs. Depression. I knew what it had done to me, and what it could do to him. Isen was our first child. His name meant gift from heaven. I remembered how his life ended in the last timeline, and I couldn't bear to lose him again. That was the moment I decided I would save him, even if it meant changing everything. Ryan rolled his eyes as if the idea of living with me again was a punishment straight from the heavens, but Fiona held onto my arm with surprising strength, unwilling to let go. Her eyes were misty, conflicted, and beneath all that bratty attitude, I could tell she missed me. She missed home. Not the one Louise had patched together with Alice, but the one where I tucked her in and sang her lullabies before she fell asleep. I looked at both of them and gently wiped the dirt from Fiona's cheeks, running my fingers through her tangled hair with a quiet tenderness that made her close her eyes like a kitten being groomed. I didn't scold, didn't complain. I simply said, "You're staying here. For as long as you want. No more back and forth." Ryan grumbled again, trying to look tough. "You better not make me do homework." I chuckled softly. "You'll do more than homework. You'll help around the house, take baths without being told, and if I find your socks under the couch again, you'll be on dish duty for a week." Fiona giggled, and even Ryan cracked a reluctant smile. That night, we shared dinner around the small kitchen table, just the four of us. Issen remained quiet at first, watching them like he wasn't sure if it was real, but when Fiona reached over and stole a dumpling from his bowl, he playfully flicked a grain of rice at her. Just like that, the wall between them started to crumble. After dinner, I tucked Fiona into bed. She insisted on sleeping in my room, clinging to my arm as if she were afraid I might disappear during the night. I let her stay. Ryan tossed and turned on the couch, muttering complaints, but I saw the way he looked at the ceiling, his arms folded behind his head, a small smile playing on his lips. It was peace. Fragile, yes, but real. The next morning, I made them breakfast and walked them to school. The three of them chatted, bickered, laughed. A neighbor peeked out her window and whispered to another, "Is that the crazy woman? She seems normal." I didn't mind. Let them say what they want. I wasn't living for their approval. I was living for my children. The days passed, and our little home began to feel like a sanctuary. Issen taught Fiona how to ride a bike, and Ryan helped me carry groceries without being asked, though he pretended to grumble the whole time. I found myself smiling more, sleeping better, waking up with purpose. Then, one rainy afternoon, as I was drying laundry inside, Luis showed up unannounced. His eyes scanned the room, noting the slippers by the door, the toys scattered on the floor, the laughter echoing from the hallway. "So," he said, awkwardly scratching the back of his neck, "they're doing okay?" I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I handed him a towel. "Dry off before you catch a cold." He obeyed, almost sheepishly, and sat down on the edge of the couch. "Alice left," he finally said. "Took her kid and disappeared without a word." I raised an eyebrow. "I thought you were just helping her temporarily."
Luis said.
I was. At least, that's what I told myself. I looked him dead in the eye. "Luis, I'm not angry anymore. But you have to decide what kind of father you want to be. Because this time, I'm not letting the kids get caught in the crossfire." He nodded slowly, gaze falling to the floor. "I want to do better." Fiona peeked her head around the corner at that moment and lit up. "Daddy." She ran over, throwing her arms around his waist. Ryan followed, more reserved but still grinning. Luis hugged them both, and for a moment I saw the man I used to love, the one I once believed in. But I didn't waver. Later that evening, after the kids went to sleep, Luis and I stood outside, listening to the rain tapping softly against the roof. "Do you think there's a chance for us?" he asked. I thought for a long moment. "Maybe," I said, "but I'm not chasing maybes anymore. My priority is them. Rebuilding what we destroyed. If you want to be part of that, then start with being their father. Everything else can wait." He didn't argue. Just nodded and walked away, shoulders wet with rain but posture straighter than it had been in years. When I returned inside, Issen was waiting by the door. "Are you okay, Mom?" he asked softly. I bent down and kissed his forehead. "I am now." That night, as I lay in bed with Fiona curled against me and the soft sound of Ryan's snores from the next room, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. Not the naive kind that waits for others to save you. The kind that grows from within, slowly and steadily, fed by effort and love. In my past life, I was too broken to see the treasures I had. This time, I would not squander them. I would hold each child close, love them fiercely, and shield them from the storms even if I had to stand alone in the rain to do it. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to rewrite our story, Ryan's face tightened as he recalled Alice's words. She told me Mom would hate me even more after the fight, that you never really loved me, that I was just a troublemaker you regretted having. I froze. For a second, it felt like the air had been knocked out of me. My hands trembled as I reached for Ryan's. And you believed her? I asked softly. His eyes flickered with shame. I didn't want to. But then I remembered how many times you got angry, how many times you didn't smile at me like you did with Fiona. So I thought maybe she was right. I pulled him into my arms, holding him tighter than I ever had before. Listen to me, Ryan. You are not a mistake. You were never unwanted. If I didn't show it before, if I failed you, that was my fault. But never again. Never again will you doubt how much I love you. He stiffened in my embrace, but then melted into it, burying his face in my shoulder. His voice cracked. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just scared. I know, baby. And I'm so proud of you for telling me the truth. The next day, I decided we needed a fresh start. I took all 3 children to a local park, one they used to love before things fell apart. We fed ducks, played tag, even had a small picnic. The laughter that filled the air was something I hadn't heard in years. Not like this. Not genuine. Not so light. Fiona chased butterflies while Isin helped me set up snacks, and Ryan sat close to me, reaching out every now and then just to hold my hand, as if needing the reassurance that I was really still here. That night, after they'd all gone to bed, I took out the last few bills I'd managed to save. I looked at them, then at the calendar. Isin's birthday was in a week. I wanted to make it special, something he would remember, not for the size of the gift, but for the warmth. For the love. He deserved that. They all did. The following morning, the peace was broken by a knock at the door. When I opened it, Alice stood there, dressed impeccably as always, her expression a mix of mock sweetness and smugness. We need to talk, she said. I didn't move. There's nothing left to say. Oh, but there is, she insisted. You see, Luis may be too dense to see it, but the law isn't. If I report you for parental neglect, it's your word against mine, and I'm very persuasive. My stomach churned, but I didn't let it show. Is that why you took money from a child? Manipulated him? Her smile faltered. Children need guidance. If you can't provide that, maybe they're better off with someone who can. Just then, Ryan stepped out. He didn't say a word. He simply stood beside me, holding my hand tightly. Alice's eyes narrowed. So, she got to you. Ryan stared straight at her. I gave you my food stamps because I thought you cared. But you're just a liar. And I'm not scared of you anymore. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I stayed strong. Alice huffed and turned on her heels. This isn't over. Yes, I called after her, it is. After she left, Ryan turned to me, his face serious. I'm sorry, Mom. You've already made it right, I said. And I meant it. Over the next few days, something shifted in our home. Isin seemed lighter, less burdened. Fiona started writing little notes and leaving them on my pillow. I love you, Mommy. You're the best cooker ever. And once, a stick figure drawing of me, her, and a baby with the label Little Sister. Ryan began helping out around the house, even setting the table without being told. On the night of Isin's birthday, we lit a small cake with flickering candles. Isin closed his eyes and made a wish, then blew them out with a smile that stretched from ear to ear. I hugged him tightly. What did you wish for? I whispered. He grinned. I wished that this would never end. Fiona chimed in. I wished for a sister who's not fussy. Ryan laughed. I wished for no more thermos explosions. We laughed until our sides hurt. In that moment I knew, no matter what the past held, no matter how much pain or regret weighed on me, this life was mine to rewrite. And I would fill it with love, with patience, and with the kind of joy that only comes from healing together. As I tucked them in that night, Fiona whispered, Do you think she can hear us? Who? I asked. The baby. Can she hear us? I placed a hand on my belly. Maybe. Want to say something? Fiona pressed her face close. Don't worry. We'll be good this time. And Mommy's not scary anymore. I smiled through a tear. Thank you, sweetheart. Then Ryan leaned over. Tell her I'm her favorite already. You wish, Fiona replied, giggling. And in that quiet, gentle darkness, surrounded by the warmth of their laughter and the tiny heartbeat within me, I felt something rare and beautiful. I felt whole. Luis froze when Isen's words echoed through the room. He didn't want us to get divorced. His eyes were wide, and for a moment, it seemed like the entire world paused around him. I saw the hopeful flicker in Luis's gaze, as if that one sentence from our eldest son could erase everything that had just happened. But I saw something else to Isen's hesitation. The boy stood with his fists clenched, his body tense, and though his voice had been steady, the way he looked at me afterwards told a different story. He didn't say it for Luis. He said it for me. For the family. For the fragile balance he had always tried to maintain. My heart clenched. I knew my son too well. He wasn't asking for things to stay the same because he believed in the marriage. He just didn't want to see another fracture tear through the people he loved. Luis stepped forward, his voice low and measured. See? Even he doesn't want this. You promised. I inhaled slowly. I promised I wouldn't file for divorce if even one of them said no. But that doesn't mean things can go back to the way they were. Luis frowned. What does that mean? It means, I said, voice steady, we stay separated. You get your space. I get mine. We'll focus on the children. No drama. No, Alice. No pretending. He looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew he couldn't. Not in front of the kids. Especially not after they'd made their choice. My mother-in-law, who had been sitting quietly with teary eyes, suddenly spoke up. I never wanted this. I know I said horrible things before. I was scared. I thought you'd abandon the children again. But I see now. You're different. Her words hung heavy in the room. I nodded but didn't respond. My focus was on my kids. Ryan, who had always been impulsive and hot-headed, now sat cross-legged on the floor, fiddling with the hem of his shirt. Fiona had curled up on the couch, watching everything with wide eyes, chewing on her lower lip. I knew they were exhausted emotionally, mentally. We all were. That evening, after we returned home, the atmosphere was subdued. I cooked a quiet dinner, and the children helped set the table without a word. There was no shouting, no fighting. Just the clinking of utensils and the occasional slurp of soup. When I tucked them in, Isen pulled me aside. Mom. I didn't say that because I wanted things to stay the same, he whispered. I just didn't want Dad to disappear. I cupped his cheek. I know, sweetheart. You don't have to explain. Do you think he'll come back? Like, for real? To be a better dad? I smiled faintly. I think he's trying. But we don't wait for others to change, Isen. We focus on being better ourselves. He nodded and hugged me tightly. You're already better, Mom. After he fell asleep, I sat in the living room, staring out the window at the dark sky. The storm outside had calmed, but inside, I still felt the aftershocks. I wasn't angry anymore. Not even at Luis. I just felt tired. Tired of hoping for things to fix themselves. Tired of waiting for someone else to take the lead. The next day, Luis sent a message through Isen. He wanted to visit the kids that weekend. I agreed. When he came, he brought gifts too many. Toys, sweets, even an expensive jacket for each of them. But Fiona didn't even touch her box. Ryan gave him a polite thank you and returned to reading his comic. Only Isen accepted it fully, though even he didn't smile. Luis tried to talk, tried to joke, but the warmth wasn't there. It couldn't be bought. After he left, Fiona whispered, "Why is he like that now?" I kissed her forehead. Because he's learning, just like we are. Days turned into weeks. I continued working small jobs from home to support the family. Isen helped with chores, Ryan tried harder at school, and Fiona grew clingier with each passing day, always afraid I'd disappear again. One evening, while folding laundry, I felt a sharp pain in my belly. I dropped the clothes and clutched my stomach. The pain passed, but fear remained. The baby. My little girl. I sat down, breathing slowly, trying not to panic. Fiona noticed first and ran to fetch Ison. The kids crowded around me, worried. Should we call Dad? Fiona asked. I shook my head. No need. Just let me rest. Ryan was already in the kitchen, trying to warm some water. Ison grabbed the emergency bag I'd prepared weeks ago. They worked together, calm, focused. I saw then how much they'd grown, how far we'd come. Later that night, after the pain had faded, I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at all three of them, asleep in one room. They'd fought for me, chosen me, and now they were protecting me. A few days later, Luis returned with papers, not divorce ones, but a custody agreement. I want to do it right, he said. I want to be in their lives, but I won't get in the way. I was surprised, but also relieved. This is good, I told him. This is what co-parenting should look like. He nodded. And if someday you change your mind, I smiled sadly. If that day ever comes, you'll have to earn it. Just like I had to earn their love again. As I watched him leave, I realized something profound. Love isn't just about being there. It's about being there right. We'd been broken, bruised, and scarred, but we were healing. Not perfectly, not quickly, but deeply. And I would never let anything take that from us again. I was about to nod when Ison continued, his voice calm but unwavering. But Mom is pregnant. The room fell silent. Luis, my mother-in-law, even Fiona and Ryan, everyone turned to look at me. Their stunned expressions slowly gave way to different reactions. My mother-in-law gasped and then beamed with joy. That's wonderful news. Why didn't you say anything earlier? Another grandchild. Oh, I have to tell the neighbors. Luis blinked several times, then slowly smiled. That's amazing. Really? But before they could celebrate too much, Ison raised his voice again. That's exactly why I think you should still get divorced. Luis's joy froze on his face. The atmosphere changed instantly. My mother-in-law snapped. Ison, that's your father you're talking to. Show some respect. But Ison didn't back down. For the first time, he didn't try to play the peacemaker. I didn't want them to divorce before. I hoped things could be fixed. But now that Mom's expecting, now that there's going to be another child, I want something different for her, for us, and for the baby. Luis's lips parted, but no sound came out. Ison looked directly at him and spoke, his words like steady drops of rain cutting through stone. Dad, you were never around when Mom was pregnant. When she carried Ryan and Fiona, you had excuses. Business trips, late nights, whatever you called them. I grew up thinking Mom didn't love us because she was always angry, tired, or crying. But I was wrong. She was sick, and you made her sick. I didn't understand it as a child, but now I do. Pregnancy is hard. It changes everything. And instead of helping her, you left her to drown in it alone. He paused, swallowed hard, and smiled sadly. Maybe you loved her, Dad. But not enough. Not in the way she needed. There was a sharp silence. Luis looked at him as if he didn't recognize his own son. Ison stepped forward. I'm not saying you're a bad person, but you're not a good husband. Not for Mom. And if this baby is going to grow up in a peaceful home, then you need to let her go. My heart ached at the truth of his words. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Ison, my son, who once hid behind silence, now stood up for everything I had been too exhausted to say. Luis opened his mouth, but found nothing to reply with. He looked at me, eyes hollow, searching for something, maybe forgiveness, maybe denial. But I had nothing more to offer. Not anger, not resentment, just the truth. That night, we finalized the divorce. Despite my mother-in-law's pleas, I signed the papers with steady hands. And unlike my past life, this time, the children chose to stay with me. Completely. They brought me water without being asked. Folded laundry. Helped with dinner. Sometimes, I would wake up in the night to find Fiona curled beside me, whispering, I'm not going to let anyone make you sad again, Mommy. Ryan, who used to be the little storm of the house, would suddenly place a warm bottle of milk on my nightstand. I Googled it, he said once, blushing. Milk helps moms sleep better when they're pregnant. Luis never came looking for Alice again. After the divorce, he stayed alone in that cold house.